With fourth place confirmed last week, we knew when the playoff semi-final fixtures would take place. We probably bought our tickets as well, and we now know the opponents. So it's going to be West Brom. George, a couple of good wins against them. There was the 2-0 back in February at the Hawthorns, 2-1 win at home back in November. But obviously, Russell Martin was very quick to say that counts for nothing going into the playoff semi-finals. But it does a bit, right?
Yeah, I definitely think it does. I think if you're going into a game and you know that you've beaten that team twice that season and you're going to play against them twice again, you're going to back yourself to probably beat them at least once. And especially with the way they played at the Hawthorns, that was only the third time that West Brom had lost at home this season. And yeah, they looked dangerous in bits, but Southampton were by far the better team. And to go there for the first leg is obviously so important in a playoff semi-final, because if you lose that by a couple of goals, then you're going into the second leg basically out of it already. And Southampton can go there, and I think they can get a couple of goals like they did in the league. And West Brom would have been the team that I'd have picked, to be fair, out of all of them. I think, yeah, they've beaten Leeds, but they were never going to be able to play against them. And the games against Norwich, I think Norwich are probably set up in a way that frustrates Southampton more than West Brom would. 2 draws, although one of them at home obviously had 8 goals. The one away was just a boring game. I thought there wasn't really much to it. And going to West Brom, I do think there's a good chance that they can get a win in that first leg. And I do think the fact that they've beaten them twice is going to play into it, even if players and managers don't want to admit it.
That was a great game, wasn't it, back in February, Glenn? Because that was where was that the one where we all thought that the unbeaten run would come to an end? And then, of course, it didn't, did it? It happened in the week. And then
we'd lost to Bristol City, and it was the first game after that. And it was obviously a big test to how we'd bounce back. Little did we know we were going to lose to bloody Hull and Millwall the following week. But anyway, yeah, so we went to West Brom, and that was obviously the most difficult game out of the 4 on paper.
Yeah.
Flynn Downs was injured, or ill or something. And on that particular occasion, we got the structure of the team exactly right. And we dealt with West Brom, have a lot of aerial threat. They're known for their set pieces and whatnot. And so having Jack Stevens in the side, helped with that. And he pulled one really good sort of clearance off from under the bar, I recall. I think that was the game where Bednarek caught one as well and got away with it. So yeah, I mean, it could have been a dodgy game, but we played really well. David Brooks scored an excellent goal. Fraser scored an excellent goal as well. So it's it was definitely one of our better performances. And we had that bizarre thing where their manager got sent off, didn't he? For kicking the ball before he'd gone out of play. Yeah. So yeah, it was that was a good performance. West Brom have been a bit of a mixed bag recently, haven't they? They've had similar sort of results to us. Lost 3. They won yesterday, but that was against Preston, who've now lost 5 in a row. And we saw them when they played at St Mary's, and they couldn't be bothered. And according, I just read the quotes from their manager Ryan Lowe, and he said that they couldn't be bothered yesterday either. And he was very, very disappointed in Preston. So I don't think West Brom are going to go into this with a massive amount of confidence from recent form. But against that, they've kind of knew they were going to be in the playoffs, didn't they? For quite a long time. And they never had the carrot of the top 2 at all. So maybe they've gone off the boil a little bit. And then all of a sudden it looked like Hull might sort of get in there and disrupt Norwich and West Brom. But no, West Brom ended up finishing 5th, but I don't think they'll be massively confident going in against us, especially because of the 2 games that we've had previously. And that game at the Hawthorns that you're talking about was a really good one from us, and relatively comfortable in the end.
How important is that first leg going to be, Steve? I mean, do we just go there and like keep it tight and then get back to St Mary's?
I mean, are we a keep it tight team? I wouldn't.
First time for everything.
60-something goals conceded. I don't.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I don't.
We're
think
not going to go there and keep it tight, are we?
Yeah, I don't think that's a feasible strategy, and I mean, it doesn't suit the way we've played all season. Doesn't suit the players that we've got. The only way we know to play is to go and try and win the game, and that's fine, because more often than not this season we've proven that we can do just that. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we put the same level of performance in as we did at the Hawthorns back in February, then we'll win the game again. Absolutely confident of that. But there's always still that nagging thought in the back of your mind of, oh, this is actually a big game that means something. We've not done particularly well in those this season.
Yeah.
So that's the one kind of counter sort of caveat to everything is, okay, now stuff's getting real. This is where it is, all or nothing. Do we have the stones for it? And I guess we're about to find out, lads.
I have a question, and Steve will know the answer to this, I'm sure. Is there VAR in the semi-finals and the final?
Final only.
Final only. Right. Okay. So we don't have to worry about that horrible bag of spanners in the
not until Wembley.
Not till Wembley. Should we get there? Right.
Not just yet.
Okay.
Yeah. If and when. George, there's a few players and staff with experience of playoffs in the squad. Mixed results, it's got to be said. But will that help as well? A bit of experience around the place?
I don't see why it wouldn't help. But then at the same time, you can talk about experience, but until you get the chance to experience it, you're never going to have that experience. And you can, if you've lost once, then it's going to give you that extra bit of motivation. But at the same time, if it's your first time playing in it, that's going to give you just as much motivation. And if you're going into the playoffs, you're going to want to win. But to have some of the players like David Brooks, James Bree, who've been there before, and they can kind of, I suppose, let people know what it's like to be in a playoff when you've got that two-legged game. But the professional footballers who've played in the Premier League, they should know exactly how to motivate themselves for the biggest games of the season. And sort of like Steve touched on there, they're the games where they have struggled a little bit. And I'm a little bit worried that perhaps it could be one of those where if they do concede 1 and 2, it quickly becomes 3 or 4 times this season. And you can't afford to do that in the playoffs because you do need to keep it tight. And although Southampton aren't that kind of team, they have shown that they can do that at times this season. And so I don't know. I'm not too sure how much it can help, but I also don't see how it can't help to have players who are experienced in it.
Do you think, George, as well, do you think that the home advantage in the second leg is going to be important for us or not? Because I can imagine it, like, if it doesn't go particularly well in the away leg, then the atmosphere is going to be so tense, isn't it? It's going to be a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I think I would always rather play at home in the second leg, because if you do draw in the first one, then you know you're taking a decent result back to your home stadium where you're going to have 30,000 people willing you on to win. But like you said, if they don't win that first leg, or if they don't look very good in that first leg as well, it's going to be a completely different atmosphere to if they've taken a good performance into the second leg. So I suppose I just have to wait and see on that. But again, I don't see why you wouldn't want to be in front of your own fans. You see national teams quite often do it. Wales are one especially. They always want their last game of a campaign, because for a team who would tend to come second, that is usually the one that is going to get you qualified. So if you could play that in front of your own fans, you do have that extra added sort of buffer where you have the supporters behind you, and it can only help, I suppose.
Friday night.
Bad example, George, that one.
Well,
Worked so well in March.
Same team for you, Glenn, for this game, do you think? Or another week to think about it, another week to prepare? Do you stick with the same 11?
Personally, I would, but I don't know if that's, simply because it suited all the players that we had on the pitch. As said earlier, it just suited them all down to the ground, and I think we look really good. The only problem I have with the sort of 3-5-2, if you want to call it that, is that sometimes the progression up to the forwards is just made a little bit more difficult by having one less. You haven't got the wide players, and that's usually where some space is. So that's the only issue I have with it. And in the second half, we didn't really create bucket loads of chances, but there was still enough, for it to work. So I would be perfectly happy if they kept exactly the same 11 in the same formation. But equally, after, I think we've got to trust the manager on this one. We've got another week to prepare. We've done well against West Brom before, and if he decides to bring in a David Brooks or Ryan Fraser to play, to play up top with Adams and Armstrong and go with the back four, then that's what we'll do. I do hope we don't do even though it worked at West Brom, I do hope we don't do the floating left back thing again, because it does my head in from a balance point of view. But
also they know about it now.
Yeah,
it's not a surprise.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about yesterday, is that it gives us an alternative. So if it's if it's not working, if you go for the back four and it's not working, then you can switch it up and everyone knows what they're doing. So yeah, personally, I'd go for the same, but I'm not on the training ground all week, so I'll let Russell Martin decide that one.
It's the plan B that we were asking for months ago. Let's do some score predictions. I think the weekend was maybe the 14th game in a row where none of us picked up a point in our little league that we've been doing. George, I'll give you the honour of going first as well with this, if you like. I don't know if you're playing for Alfie or whether we'll have to get in touch with him and get his score prediction as well. But if I could trouble you for a score prediction for the first leg at the Hawthorns.
Well, my score prediction, I don't know what Alfie's thinking. I think it's 3-1. That's sort of the score that comes straight to my head. I don't think Southampton are a team who are going to keep a clean sheet, but I also think they're going to score a couple of goals like we saw in the game previously, and especially first leg. You'd hope that with another week of training, they're going to be right up for it. They're going to be well rested, but also raring to go, get a couple of goals. I can imagine Adam Armstrong, he tends to score a lot of the important goals this season. If he gets one, then I think they could get a few.
I'll be delighted with that. Steve, how do you see it playing out?
Well, because my predictions have been so awful this season, I'm going for a draw.
Okay.
So I'm going to go for a highly entertaining and slightly ludicrous 2-2 draw.
Again, I think we'd settle for that as well. Glenn, what do you reckon?
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say it's going to be quite cagey. First leg tends to be tight. I think both teams will want to get through the first leg and still be in the game. So I don't think West Brom are going to go into it with loads of confidence about playing us. So I think they'll be quite cagey. But I'm hoping we get have enough about us to get the job done. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win in the first leg.
2-1 win. Okay, if you're watching live, do put your score predictions in the comments, and we'll see how much better you are at predicting the scores than we are.